Hello and welcome to the Geo Podcast. This month we're joined by James Rasza, the Business Director at the Democracy Brewing Cooperative in Boston, Massachusetts. He tells us about the project that they're working on and shares with us some of his thoughts about the relationships between unions and co-ops and what we could do to work better together.
So I'm James Rasza. I live in Boston, Mass. And I'm working on Democracy Brewing, which is a worker cooperative brewery, bar, event space, and sort of community and worker center too.
How long have you guys been working on this project?
Me and Jason have been working together, who is my partner and head brewer, for over a year now. But it's definitely been something I've been working on for a few years now. But it's been taking off over the last year.
And you guys are doing a crowdfunding campaign right now, correct?
We are. Thank you for asking.
Give us a lowdown on that one.
Sure. So right now we're trying to raise $30,000. And the real reason why is because we want to put a first and last deposit on a space that we really want to get here in Boston. We already are competing against two other people for the space, just because the real estate market here, like San Francisco or New York, is really, really tough, especially if you're trying to find a space that's suitable and big enough but affordable for our startup brewery. So right now we really need all the co-op and union and you name it, solidarity, social justice, anything to help us get to the point where we can put a first and last on this space. And we have a lot of our loans already lined up and all that kind of stuff, but long story short, we gotta move quickly on this space.
Assuming that things go well and you're able to move into the space, how quickly after that would you expect that you'd be brewing?
Well, so the space itself actually is not it's currently occupied. It would not be available for us to start to build out until February of next year, which would give us a few months build out, and then we'd probably be open June, July.
How long is the crowdfunding campaign going? What's your schedule on this?
We've got less than 2 weeks left.
Which makes, what's the end date?
August 20th. It goes to August 20th.
So August 20th is the cutoff date. And which crowdfunding site are you guys using?
Indiegogo.
Right. So any donations, pledges that people make, you'll actually get even if you don't reach your full goal, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and how close are you guys now? What's your current?
We're at 11,146, so we're at 37% funded. So yeah, we're gonna make a last push in the last couple of weeks to get the rest of it in the next 11 days.
Great. Have you been reaching out to any other groups in Boston? Have you got much support from any of the union folk or other co-op people in the area?
Definitely. No, we've gotten some great support, especially I used to work at SEIU 8888, and they actually sort of, I think, all pitched in together and bought tickets so they can go to one of our beer parties, and they've been super supportive. So, and folks from all over the place have actually, from different labor groups, have been giving money and supporting us and sending out to their folks too.
Great. So is there anything else about the brewery that you're planning, or the campaign in particular, that you want to make sure people know about?
So a big part of of Democracy Brewing is trying to recreate sort of the public house that once upon a time here in America and in Ireland and other places was really the cultural and social heart of a lot of the community. I think a lot of that has been lost over time, both in labor movements and organizing. I think a lot of it has been taken over by sort of, once upon a time, the public house is a place where you pass the hat. In the Irish tradition, often planned the next revolution. Same in America, too, if you ask the Sons of Liberty. But the idea is I think it's a great place for people to come together, learn about what's going on, get to know their community, and I think that's been lost a lot. And I think as their society has sort of grown and become more secular, so people are going less and less to church socials and things like that, and the labor movement has sort of declined, and also sort of the culture of going to the union hall and sort of those things have also declined. We're sort of living in a place now where a lot of people don't know their neighbors anymore. They're very separated. We're also much more transient, and so I think we're having a much harder time creating roots. And so Democracy Brewing is trying to step in and actually be a place where we sort of span around different race, class, gender, you name it, and actually bring folks together and try to find shared projects for them to work on together, and also help folks organize their own workplaces, and so sort of create a social center where people can just go and have a great time and like go see a band play in our event space, or go see a movie in our event space, or we hope to be the place to watch the New England Patriots because me and my partner are both hardcore New England Patriots fans. But at the end of the day, too, we want to create a space that can be more than that if you want it to be. So if you want to just go watch the Pats, awesome. But if you want to sign up with a bunch of folks that also love beer and go out and help your community through either charity work or helping them sort of, fight gentrification or whatever it might be, there's also ways for you to do that. There's avenues for you to become more connected with your community and sort of rub shoulders. And if you want to, do something good too.
So it sounds like you've got a vision for something that's almost more of an organizing space where the beer is more the draw to get people to come in and to lubricate the interactions. But it definitely sounds like you've got much more than just your average brewery in mind.
For sure. And I think a big part of that, too, is the staff. I think it's not that you build it and they will come. We need folks that are really invested and care about making sure people are regulars and really want to keep coming back. And I think that's really where a worker cooperative model is absolutely critical. I think the worker cooperative stuff is very, very critical because it actually has, if you've ever been to a bar and been waited on by an owner, it's a night and day difference between someone who's getting paid $2.50 an hour and works 3 different jobs. And so I think having that vested interest in getting to know your customers, making sure they're having the best experience, and then really getting to know them, what they care about, and then being able to connect what they care about with the things that are the broader mission of what we're trying to do is really going to be what makes us succeed or fail. But I think it's also important to really say that I think only a small percentage of people, let's say 5%, I'm making that up, but are really going to be connected to us as an organizing institution. I don't want it to be like such an in-your-face thing where you can't just go and have a pint and have a great time. I think at the end of the day, we want to make sure, even if you're part of the organizing sector of things, we want you to be able to go there and have a great time. I think oftentimes we segment activism or organizing into 2 different things, and it makes it so it's super stressful or super scary or super angry, and I think we're trying to bridge that gap where we can be a third space for organizing, where it's actually like, no, this is actually where you get to know the people you're working with better. You get to deepen relationships. You get to know other people in your community. It's a way of really interacting more than just organizing. I think I want it to be the fun side of organizing, if that makes sense too.
Yeah, no, that's great, and definitely something that we need more of, I think, in the movement. The socializing space, so it doesn't just turn into board meetings and conference calls.
Yeah, we can do those, but we need to all go hang out afterwards. Is the point, and I think trying to create a space where you can do both is what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that's great. So what particular part of Boston are you in? I'm not real familiar with the geography, but what's the neighborhood like? Is it where you guys are from, or where have you chosen to locate?
No, so I'm from Maine originally. My partner is from a small city just outside Melrose, outside of Boston. We're looking to have a spot near Andrew Square, which is part of South Boston, sort of on the Dorchester line too. And Southie has been traditionally a very working class community, but it's been super duper gentrified, and so really Southie doesn't even exist anymore. If you walk around, like I've gone to St. Patrick's Day, for every year for like the last 15 years, except for a couple. And I no longer can even recognize places that I've gone to for a long time because it's changed. Literally, even physical terrain has changed so much, and so many buildings have been demolished, and so many condos have come up. But there is still a working class community there. There are still affordable housing there, and so I think one of the things we're really trying to do is, and there's a lot of labor halls around there too, and so I think what we're really trying to do is create a space in this area specifically. I mean, I'll mind you too, it's near the highway, near the train, in the bus station, and so all that is critical too, so other folks can travel a little ways easily and get to us. But I think what we're trying to do is use beer to sort of cover all of this ground for different groups, both along race, class, you name it. And I think we want to create a space where young urban professionals who live in the condos nearby can come and enjoy some super great cask beer, and they can go home to their beer nerd friends and brag about it. And that's huge. We're a brewery, right? We need to be able to do that. And luckily Jason's awesome, so that's not a problem. But we also, I got a lot of friends who they get real fancy on St. Patrick's Day and will drink Guinness, and that's as fancy as they ever want to get. And the rest of the time it's Miller or Budweiser, and that's why we want to have the working person's pint, which is a $3 really light lager, and anyone who drinks any kind of beer would like. And so we want to make craft beer accessible to working class folks too. And so I think that's one of the things we're trying to really create, both in the beer and the things we offer, and also the entertainment we offer, that no matter who you are, you'll be able to feel at home here. And I think that's sort of one of the things we're trying to do. Dorchester, which is very close where I live, it has a very large Vietnamese community, and so a lot of the beer they're used to drinking is very light lagers as well. And so just trying to find beers that really can be accessible. You don't have to go in and totally blow out your palate and have to try these things, and people will tell you, oh, no, and have to lecture you for 10 minutes before you can actually enjoy something that you're used to. And so we're trying to mix those things where a beer nerd will have the time of his life on our rotating beers that'll change monthly, and then also our core brands are something that anyone could enjoy.
Oh, great. That sounds like you put a lot of thought into how you're setting this up. And
when you have very little money, you get a lot of planning, which is good. If you got a lot of money, we'd probably just be up and running now and making money. But luckily, we don't have a lot of money, so we have a lot of time to plan.
That's a great perspective to have. So, and just for the record now, you're organized as a worker co-op. Have you guys incorporated yet? Are you incorporated under a co-op law or as an LLC?
We are, yeah. We're lucky. Massachusetts has great worker cooperative laws. We're incorporated as a worker cooperative properly.
And how many are you right now in the co-op?
Right now, we're just me and Jason. We have a board who's awesome as well. We have everyone from a nonprofit executive director. We have folks who actually Rob, who's the CEO of Equal Exchange, who I used to work for, which is a worker cooperative that's pretty big in this area. We have the executive, the CEO of or founder. I'm not sure what the title is. But of Boston Calling too, which is a music festival here, and we also have an awesome guy, Matt Grosshandler, who's helping us with the build out. He's a general contractor who's super great. He's been an awesome supporter. So we kind of have a nice sort of great group of folks that are helping us plan and figure things out, and it's amazing to be able to call someone whose main job is doing musical promotion and be like, hey, how big should we make our event space? And we're thinking 2,000 square feet. And he's like, you're out of your mind. No, make it 1,000. That's way too big. And it's great that, we don't have to do 10 years of research or we can just call someone who has that, especially with the general contractor too. And so anyways, it's been really, really good on that end. I will say right now we're trying to hire someone to do events. We need someone who can come in. Obviously, hire is a strong word because no one's getting paid right now, but someone who can donate some of their time and then down the road become a worker owner around helping us plan fun events. Because a big part of the next 6 months is going to be doing our crowdfunding for direct public offering, so people can actually own Class B shares of our company. So non-voting shares, so we can be a worker co-op. But we're going to be doing lots of fun parties. A couple of them are already planned in September and October, and so that's sort of where we're headed now.
Oh, that's great. So, can you just tell me a little bit more about the board structure that you have? I wasn't expecting it. Worker co-ops, generally don't have a board. That's more of a nonprofit thing. So, is this something, this structure, something that you've kind of just came up with that works for you, or is this part of the co-op incorporation laws in the state, or how does that work?
Yeah, so in Massachusetts, every co-op needs to have a board. How you structure your board's up to you. So right now we have, because we're a startup, we have a bunch of folks who are not Class A shareholders, to be clear. They're not members. They are on the board and vote. But the members then, which is just me and Jason at this point, who have already paid $3,000 for our Class A shares, we then approve of that. If there's any change to the bylaws, if we all vote on stuff, but if we actually are going to change the way the business is run, me and Jason have to approve it. And the idea is as we move forward, these folks are really helping us launch with their skills and their tools. And as we go forward and everyone does basically the probationary year, which sounds nasty, but you basically their trial year, and then they get voted in, then they would immediately go onto the board. So basically we're going to be a much more horizontal model. So as you become a worker owner, you immediately go onto the board. And as that happens, we'll be probably transitioning outside board members off until we're really up and running. If that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
And I mean, if we decide to, let's say, go big into distribution, right? Like that's not our plan right now, but let's say in 3 years, wow, we're blown up. We are already filling the space. Can't keep up the offers. We need to make a bigger location where we can just do distribution. Then we could bring on, if we wanted to as workers, we could bring on someone who's already done this sort of thing, who's an expert. And so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We could just bring on an outside person just to help us navigate that terrain. So it's more just giving us the flexibility. Right now, we don't have a lot of worker owners because we can't pay anything. So we want to have all this amazing outside expertise get us off the ground. And then down the road, we'll transition to more just complete worker control, obviously. And if we want to, as workers, we can also bring on experts if we choose.
Great. Yeah. That sounds like a good system for getting the worker co-op off the ground and being able to take advantage, so to speak, but in a good way of community resources and other people's knowledge bases, even if they aren't going to be necessarily a worker owner. Yeah, that's great. So just tell us a little bit about your background in the labor movement and how that's anything that you've noticed in working with in the co-op world from that.
Okay. So I ended up I've been a rank and file Teamster briefly when I was 20, just quick, but it made a big difference to me seeing the union difference. I'd never really been part of a union. I didn't really know how it worked, and getting a job, then after a month, after your probationary period, you were then covered by the contract and you were a union member, and you didn't have to be scared that they could arbitrarily fire you all the time. Like, as long as you're doing your job, you don't have to be scared, which was a huge night and day to me from all the other jobs I'd ever had. And so that had a profound effect on me, but I didn't understand. I sort of got into the labor movement because I really saw the union difference as a worker, but also knowing that your job affects, even if you don't have a good job and you can't buy a good house, or you live in a working class community and that school is funded by the value of your home, then it basically means, your kid's life and his future literally matters less, even in public schools, than anywhere else. And so that really started to dawn on me, going to a poor school and seeing all the middle class schools around us. The teachers got paid way more money, the schools were fancier, all that kind of stuff. They could afford a football team. We didn't have a football team because we were so poor. Anyway, we have one now, proud to say, I guess. But anyways, that's sort of what drove me to go back. I ended up having to drop out. I ended up having to go back to school. I finally got a 4-year degree when I went back to school at 25 at University of California, Santa Cruz. I went back to school and got basically a degree in organizing. Believe it or not, they still had it at the time. And it was a great program, but a big part of that was I spent 6 months in the field working full-time, 3 months for Young Workers United in San Francisco, and then 3 months with the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. And the reason why I bring this up is because I think it's important is because when I was 26, when I was doing these programs, I was literally studying Young Workers United, which is a worker center for restaurant workers in San Francisco, both organizing around policy in the city and also organizing workers there. And then I was lucky enough to work under Melissa Hoover, who's amazing, at the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives as her intern, and got to see really the difference between, wow, this is the solution, right? You don't have to have, the stories you hear from workers when you're organizing, the viciousness that goes on in workplaces, like, I could go on and on and on about the horrible stuff that you see, right? People lose their lives, they lose limbs. Some people are driven to, you go on and on. But then to see worker cooperatives on the other side, and that, guess what? They don't fix everything, because worker cooperatives, the biggest problem with them is that they're filled with people. Same as the labor movement, filled with people, so there's lots of problems, but you could see a better model there. And so for me, that's sort of what's driven me to now, 7 years later, I'm 32, I'm creating basically an amalgamation of those two things that I studied first 7 years ago. After graduating from the University of California, Santa Cruz, I had done 6 months with the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives and Young Workers United. I then worked for SEIU International as part of their fight for a fair economy here in Boston. I then transitioned for 2 years and worked for Jobs with Justice, doing Jobs with Justice as an organizer there, and worked on every campaign from keeping Walmart out of Somerville, which we were luckily successful for, and doing everything from solidarity around immigrant issues, Occupy Boston at the time, fighting. If I had a nickel for every time I got kicked out of a Verizon store. Anyway, so doing lots of different stuff with them, and then I transitioned to Equal Exchange, where I was a sales rep for Equal Exchange, which is a worker cooperative, coffee and chocolate and some other fair trade products. They've been around for about 30 years. I think they're about 120 worker owners now, maybe 150. And then after that, I ended up working for SEIU, Service Employees International Union 888, Local 888, and they were amazing. And I just worked on their political work for a few months. It was great. And then I transitioned to working on climate change for 350 Massachusetts for 2 years as their director of organizing. And so from there, I transitioned into working on this project. So I had a lot of jobs.
Unions and co-ops have been kind of in the news a little bit lately, or at least in the part of the internet that I pay attention to. And there's been some positive stories out there. The communications workers, for instance, helping to set up taxi cab co-ops. The USW, the steel workers, working in Cincinnati with the union cooperative, what's it called? Co-op Union Initiative, Cincinnati Union Cooperative Initiative, UCI. So great stuff like that going on. But then I also see stories from Seattle, for instance, where REI, which is a consumer co-op, not a worker co-op, but owned by its people who shop there, customers, myself being one of them, they're in a kind of a labor fight right now with their employees in their Seattle store who want to unionize, and the management is, saying a lot of the same kind of things to its workers about why they shouldn't unionize that we are used to hearing from, the big corporations. So I'm just wondering if you have, what your take is on kind of the relations between unions and especially consumer co-ops, and what you think that we could be doing in the co-op movement to improve those relations and make sure that we don't end up, having these really unfortunate fights between, people who should really all be working for the same goals.
Sure. So a big part of I really believe in worker cooperatives. I think consumer cooperatives can be a little trickier, a lot trickier. I've seen here in Boston, for example, I couldn't speak with any, understanding about any of the stuff you just said, because I don't work with Cincinnati or the Los Angeles. Sounds like they're doing amazing work right now too. Some of the labor unions there with some of the, what do you call them? We don't have them too much out here, but the car washes. So anyways, I think there's some stuff that's going on that's amazing, and it's actually taking off unions and co-ops. I've been sort of studying this and following this forever, and not forever, excuse me, but like the last 7 years, and that's not forever, but very little has actually gotten done most of the time. And people have talked about it and it makes sense, and now it seems like it's really blossoming all over the place. It's super exciting. I would also mention too, and I find most exciting, is what you saw in, say, like Chicago with the Republic windows and doors and the New Era windows and doors, where you saw worker organizing with UE, where they did a sit-in strike, and then pushed the issue again with another sit-in strike. And I'm not going to go through all the details, but the point was that they were able to negotiate their own worker cooperatives through labor struggle. And you've seen the same thing here. This is like 20 years ago. Don't quote me on any of this because secondhand. But there was steel workers here again. I don't know if it was USW, but I know they work with steel. But they do manufacturing here in Everett, Mass, which is basically Boston, very close. And they had a nasty strike where they were going to move their company down south, where it was non-union, of course. And the workers basically shut the whole plant down and refused to let them do anything. And so eventually, the whole plant was shut down. They couldn't get anyone to buy it. They couldn't ship it. Everything was a huge hassle. And the workers basically negotiated where they're like, well, we'll let you sell it to us. And so workers bought it from the company and were able to take it over. And it's still running. It's not been super effective, is my understanding. It has definitely had a slow decline for multiple reasons, is my understanding. Again, I'm the furthest thing from an expert, and I'm sure if someone's listening to this who knows more is pulling their hair out. But, at the same time, they're having to deal with the steel market that's international now. They're having to deal with all these other pressures on the market. And so they haven't exactly exploded from there and sort of dwindled. But I still find that on an organizing level very exciting. I would say back to consumer co-ops, though, this is going to be wildly unpopular for folks. I find them oftentimes just to be local corporations. And frankly, yeah, it's nice that you can own a piece of like your local, oftentimes very fancy grocery store. And you elect a board for the people who are actively participating, but that board oftentimes is no more democratic than, say, like AT&T has a board too, right? And then they hire an executive director, and that executive, or CEO, excuse me, and that CEO then runs like a normal business, right? And so what we found here was different, food co-ops, is that they're paying poverty wages. They were fighting tooth and nail against anybody who tried to unionize. And so luckily, a lot of the United Food and Commercial Workers, especially out west here in Massachusetts, were able to unionize these folks. And I think at the end of the day, consumer co-ops might be democratic for consumers, but the people who actually spend 40 hours a week there, not 1 hour a week maybe tops, shopping, should have more of a say at work. And so I think it's critical, if you're going to have a non-democratic model, that you need to have a democratic model of unionization within the stores, if you're going to have any sort of rights as a human being, frankly, in the workplace. So I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to have a consumer co-op and you want to be supportive of workers, you really need to have them have an independent voice.
Right, have their own board position or have their own type of share or something like that.
Even then, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been, I've been in board meetings where I was the one dissenting voice, and I was representing every single other staff member, but I was the only staff person there, and it's not a good place to be in, right? I'd rather not negotiate with folks who don't know what they're talking about because they don't work there. I'd much rather, not my was different as a nonprofit board, but the point is that I think the power relations are still the same. I would much rather have a mobilized unit of organized workers who could demand that they be heard versus, we have an opportunity to be heard, and it's up to them if they do or don't want to hear you.
Okay, well, great. I know that's maybe not as cheery an outlook as some listeners might be hoping for, but that's the reality. So it's not always quite as. I think what it really points to is that there's a lot more work that needs to be done in the co-op movement to really build the solidarity, between everybody who's involved. If, workers at a consumer co-op or or any other type of co-op. So,
and I will say too, it's not a black and white issue at all. And I've seen, like, I just was lucky enough to be in Austin, where we met, and I got to check out Black Star Co-op, which is a consumer brewery, which obviously I've been a big fan of. They've been open for like 6 years, and they're amazing. And I got to sit down with some of the workers there, and they really believe in it. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, they really do get to run their show. They really get to sort of run stuff. It is actually worker run, which is, you know, the board wanted that, and it seems like in many ways being very effective, right? And of course there's complaints and there's things like that, but it's, you know, what we call a workplace, right? So talking that there are, of course, right? So point is, though, it seems like there are ways to do it effectively, and I don't want to say that you even, in my one critique of the labor movement thing I really found, but I'll tell you, like I said, I used to be a Teamster briefly, but this is one of the reasons why I really believe in worker co-ops is that I wasn't scared at work anymore. The union had fixed that problem for me, right? And so, but I was doing the unload. So just me and one other guy who basically would pile we'd go and unload every single truck, which is a small place where I worked in Auburn and in Portland, actually. But me and this one other guy would basically be in charge of setting the pace for every other person in the building, because we would unload the boxes that would go in the conveyor belt. Long story short, one of my conveyor belts had a bent wheel, not on the ground but on the rollers. So when the boxes were supposed to roll, they'd fall off and get lodged, right? Now, I was doing 1,000 boxes an hour. That's what your rate had to be there straight. Sit there before you became a worker owner. They would sit there with the stop clock, you know, make sure you're hitting your mark, right? If you weren't, they could fire you before you became a union member. So moving 1,000 packages an hour, which is crazy hard. You're moving so fast you can't even look up. But because of that bent roller, I finally looked up, and all the boxes were everywhere because one corner of one box had caught that one bent roller. And this would happen every, 10 minutes. So then I have to go in and squeeze, put all the boxes that I already loaded back onto it, and do it again. So this is a boring story, but here's my point. So I went and told my supervisor, hey, the equipment's screwed up. You just need to fix this 1 or 2 rollers right here, and I'll be able to work better. He's like, yeah. I'll look into it, buddy. Right? And so, right, cool, you don't want to listen to me. You don't want me to have a voice. Cool, I walk away. And so I'm sitting there. I'm pissed now, right, because I'm loading all these boxes, and they're going everywhere. And now I'm more and more mad because I wanted to fix the problem. I can't. And so the point is that I ended up doing the math, and because I'm setting the pace of the entire building, we're there a half hour more every day because of those 2 bent rollers. And that means everybody in that building is getting paid another half hour. Everybody there. So long story short, did I go back and explain to them why it was so important that it would be more efficient? Of course not. Because I would have stolen a half hour of my own work. And I would have stolen a half hour from everybody else who has my back and actually is good workers. So that's what really made me think that maybe we need a different system where instead of me making the company run well actually hurts me, I could actually benefit from making the company run well. Because even though I might just be, some dumb monkey who's loading boxes onto a conveyor belt that anyone could do, I'm still smart enough to know those 2 rollers could have made us way more efficient. Except if I make us way more efficient, I get hurt as a worker. So that's the only thing I would say. Unions are amazing, and we need them if we're going to have a middle class right now. But I also want to create models where I, as a worker, can take pride in what I'm doing and really want the business to succeed and really have a sort of some skin in the game.
Right, yeah, and that is I think the fundamental problem with the traditional business setup that we have here in the U.S. is that you get these kind of perverse incentives and paradoxical incentives like that, to where, if you're not the owner of the company and you're paid by the hour, then it's actually beneficial for you to be less efficient. And
totally. And so for that reason, then your boss has to run it like a dictatorship where he's got video cameras everywhere. You know what I mean? Like North Korea would love how Starbucks runs their companies. You know what I mean? Like I used to work at Starbucks too. So the point is, though, is that, if you don't have the right incentives, you have to treat everybody like a thief. And so then everybody just has a great time at work, right? So anyway, I think we can do better.
Great. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for talking to us, James. And if you've got any final thoughts or comments for the Geo Worker Co-op audience, now's the time.
Gosh, all I've got is shameless promotion. Please support us on our Indiegogo campaign. We only have 11 days left. We got a ways to go. Anything you can give, any of your friends who like this kind of stuff, they like unions, if they like beer, if they like Paul, please send it out to them. Anything you can contribute would be awesome, and that's all I got. Thank you so much for making time. I hope I come off all right, and thank you so much.
And thank you, James, for making the time to talk to us. And thank you also to all of our listeners out there. Be sure to click on the link below and check out Democracy Brewing's crowdfunding campaign and make a donation. And feel free to make a donation to us, too, if you appreciate the work that GEO does and want to help us continue to bring you voices from the worker cooperative and solidarity economy movements. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.